Take at it again. Conscious Village. Truth Be Told Radio. There you go. Anything I speak, put 100 on it. Bet 100 it be something you gon' wanna quote it. We got them balls for your dialogue. Regardless if you right or wrong, we pilot to the early morning. 3-3-0, we bout that business. Hit the share button. Can I get another witness? This is Truth Be Told Radio. It's conscious, fun, and crazy, bro. Let's give them what they waiting
We like to welcome y'all to the Truth Be Told talk show. We keep it honey like a Benji, just in case y'all ain't know. We say what's cracking in your city and the places y'all should go. We mix the good, the bad, the pretty, and we make it all go. We like to welcome y'all to the Truth Be Told talk show. We keep it honey like a Benji, just in case y'all ain't know. We say what's cracking in your city and the places y'all should go. We mix the good, the bad, the pretty, and we make it all go, all go, all go, all go. Yeah, we make it all go, all go, all go, all go. Truth Be Told talk show.
Take at it again. Conscious. We're live. It's Truth Be Told Radio, where we keep it a buck, because you know we don't give a fuck. It's Big Rob.
It's Deasia Monique. What's up, y'all?
Is it still on YouTube? We give us a quick second. There we go. All right. We're doing something big. We have a very huge special guest panel tonight. This is a multi-streaming, multimedia town hall, as I'll call it. Yeah. With me I have Hank Forrester of 330 To Go, a very consistent, diligent freelance reporter in journalism, covering a lot of real issues within the city and community events. And in light of the events that we're dealing with right now, we have another very special guest. We have the cousin of the late Jalen Walker, Brother DeLon Carter. We welcome y'all.
Absolutely.
We are courtesy of Live at 225, the homie DC, Darren Taylor Collins. This is a big event being put together because there's a lot of things that we need to talk about that require all of us. So before we get any further with anything, I want to give the floor to Brother DeLon to express to y'all the life of Jalen Walker that the media doesn't cover, the life that the opinions and the politics don't show. So, welcome, bro.
Appreciate you. To know Jalen is to know, St. Ashworth Temple, Church of God in Christ, to know Pam, his mother, Jada, his late father, Pete Walker, who is the guy that took care of his whole church family. Anytime anybody needed something, he was doing it. And Jalen was there to witness that and to be a part of that. And Jalen had inherited that spirit, you know what I'm saying? That softness, that meekness, and that love from his father and mother. And, it's tough to see them, his mother and his sister, go through that, at this time. And we just try to lift them up with love. And, you see the type of people they are, asking for peaceful protest, and everybody stay calm and create real change by voting and standing up and speaking out. So, he was just an upstanding citizen, a great friend. Nobody had anything bad to say about Jalen. Never had a criminal history.
No doubt.
just a young black man whose life was taken too soon for no reason.
Our condolences definitely go to the family. You know,
Definitely.
what does the family want out of all this?
All we want at the end of the day is justice and immediate and long-lasting change. We see it, you know, things are not progressing, and there needs to be things put in place. So, you know, African American life is not taken so swiftly without consideration.
That's definitely what we need.
For sure. That's a regular thing.
I
That's
mean,
an occurrence today.
We live it. It's a very it's beyond articulating at times because it's a part of our day-to-day life. And I think that a lot of people don't, if they're not connected to that kind of lifestyle, it's hard for them to rationalize or understand the sentiment of the community. So when you have certain individuals that are from that community that are able to understand our situation and they put themselves in the presence of that situation to try to share that narrative, that's when you have people like Brother Hank over here that we have to salute and give the floor to. You know?
I don't know about that.
You're definitely an ally. For
Well,
sure.
You're definitely on the squad, man.
Yeah.
And,
All right.
and we appreciate it
Well,
in that way.
thank you for that. Okay. Thank you for being here. And I said to you off the air, my condolences to you and the family as well. And as a network, that's one of those things that we are really not good at doing. Okay. And when we do try and stay as neutral as we are, we kind of forget when we're reporting on stuff, all of the human elements that are behind it. Right. So a lot of those will come through, like when we share like the stories from the Beacon where the family's talking or you know, but yeah, it's an interesting platform that we have created, and it was completely by accident. It was completely, we were a bunch of DJs, started with a food and football podcast, right?
Okay.
And then we had to switch and pivot and do more new stuff when the pandemic hit. And that was then when George Floyd happened, that was my first time really being out in the community. And I had never, you know, at that point I was 46 years old, right? Okay. I had never been to a protest in my life. I didn't know what they were about. I didn't know what they were for. I just felt that it was important that I go and do what we always do. And as you and I have talked before, just turn the camera on and let the camera tell the story, right? And the first protest I'll never forget, here I am, middle-aged white dude. I wore jeans and like dress shoes and like a
Feet gonna hurt.
like
Time to run,
a
man.
polyurethane shirt like this, right? And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm just gonna cover. They're in front of the police station. I'm just gonna cover it, right? Well, then they start marching, and I'm like, well, what do I do? And then one group stays, and one group, and I'm like, do I go? Do I stay? What's supposed to happen here? Right. So next thing you know, I end up marching 13 miles.
Ooh, in your church shoes.
It was and we go all the way up by Akron, then all the way down Market, and all this. And I was just shutting up and letting the camera tell the story. And what happened was, that was really 330 to Go's real introduction to the black community as a whole, where they said, okay, well, this guy's just gonna just share what we're doing.
Right.
And that was it. It was just a very simplistic thought process.
Right.
I found out later that they had a security detail assigned to me because they appreciated that so much.
No doubt.
Nice.
And people were bringing me battery packs so I could keep going live and stay live.
Nice.
So yeah, you fast forward to today, and things are different now. We're bigger. We have a bigger voice, and again, we have to be extraordinarily careful with that voice.
Right.
And we all know that an incident happened on Saturday with me and some protesters, and it was taken completely out of context. And we'll talk about that later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate being here, and I said before we started, change only happens if you have a few people that are willing to take those first steps.
Indeed.
And these kind of conversations, although they will be uncomfortable,
Right.
they need to happen frequently, often, and everywhere. And it could be anywhere. It could be talking at a bar. It could be
Right.
talking at a barbecue. and you start to brainstorm, you come up with ideas in terms of, okay, so what are some changes that we would want to see?
Right.
And then once you get those lists, then you go to public officials. So,
Indeed. You know, we're one of the reasons why we put this together. In light of everything that's been going on, I mean, first off, let's put it like this. You know, just to keep it all the way. Ever since I got into music, media, journalism of sorts, it's always been about the pace and the heartbeat of the people. And what has been going on has awakened a lot of people. It has angered a lot of people. And it's pulled, you know, a lot of people to come out of their normal elements to be a part of. And though that's needed, one of the dangerous aspects of that is that sometimes the enormity of it all, the limelight of it or whatnot, can bring people, take them off task.
Yeah.
And I've had to be selective about what I chose to partake in because of that element. Because I'm not the one, unfortunately, that's not laying, I'm not the one that's in a casket right now. I'm not the one whose family is, like countless others, sitting at home looking at the empty space that used to be filled by that family member. I'm not the headline that's reaching national news. That's not me. So I think a lot of us have to be mindful of that with what we're doing and what the purpose of this show tonight, because after all of the cameras and after all of the celebrities and after all of that, we're still stuck in Akron, Ohio, and we're still citizens that have these commissioned law enforcement officers to engage and deal with, and they have to deal with us. And if you're a human being, you want the course of action to be a peaceful situation. So that's what this talk is about. That's what this conversation is about. I want to start, in a sense, by giving a bit of information on, we have to first understand the origin of the police department. Because in order to get some kind of line of communication, we have to understand the nature of a thing. Your first official police department originated in Boston back in 1838. But unofficially, in parts of South Carolina and Deep South, your first examples of that were the slave patrols in the 1700s. They say, well, why are you going up to that? Why are you bringing all that?
Because the foundation of a thing is important. That's what a lot of people fail to realize. The start of something, the origination of it. I feel like that's important. Like, because people don't realize where things start, and then they change into other things.
And it changes the context of the dynamic of how people see a thing. If in one society, this establishment was used or designed directly to police and control, another society may see them as they are keeping them safe.
To protect
You know,
and serve.
and I can understand if you're not from a culture, how when you hear it expressed in another culture, that it sounds like Greek to you,
Right.
and they look at you like you're deaf.
Yeah.
So when we look at that, the fact that that is the nature in which things were created, and we look at now with police with immunity when it comes to use of force, the question becomes, if our police are an elite institution, shouldn't they also be held, and their actions be held to an elite set of accountability?
Definitely concur with that. I mean, you're trained to do that. You're trained to have discernment and de-escalate and, subdue, You know, that's the last resort, is to take a life. You know what I mean? And you're supposed to be the expert on that, in counseling, talking down, and you know, we're not seeing that of lately.
And you guys, there's training and all of that, like when they first start as a police officer.
Absolutely.
For all of those things, like it's not like you just, hey, I want to be a police officer, give me a gun, let's go, and then just go out here all willy nilly.
No, not at all.
Right. Exactly. So, and then are there like mental health evaluations and things like that to ensure that this person is capable of handling a firearm or handling people or handling different ethnicities and situations and stuff like that? Or those things are in place as well?
Well, that's pre-hire. You know, you go through your psych eval and all that, but it shouldn't be a one-time thing. It should be reassessed.
Right.
You know, it's a traumatic job. You're dealing with traumatic incidents.
Right.
So, you know, you sending these guys out here and not checking on them, you know.
Right.
They're not robots. They're human beings, but you want them to perform like robots.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I mean, you know, in what I do, I interact with both AFD and APD a lot. You know, I'm out there covering the scene, I'm out there covering a fire, so I know half the force, and I know half the fire department. You know, not by first names and stuff. We're not hanging out, but at the same time, I see them, I know their faces. And one thing that I can't remember her name, the one lieutenant I did a show with last year, she said to me something about first responders. Our worst day of our life is their every day.
Right.
And when you think about that from the human element, I have a tendency, and again, because I don't have to live in the same culture, I have a tendency to look at that human element and what are they going through too.
Right.
Right.
And how are they coping with that?
Yeah. So in other words, they get them on one call where they just had, like, for example, and this is a horrible thing to bring up, but the child that got killed just recently, and that's also related to all this too. And
Unfortunately.
yeah, and they get done on that call, and then they go to the next call, and it's someone that gets aggressive with them.
Exactly.
So their emotions are already supercharged because they just watched a baby being pulled off the ground, and then they go to the next call. And I'm sure you've dealt with that
Absolutely.
out in the field. And how do they mentally handle that, right? So that's, I would say that that psychiatric part is a huge component here as well. And then on top of that, they're trying to not, they want to go home to their family.
Right.
And this also brings up guns, right? I mean,
it's part of it.
we got a gun.
It's a great deal part of it.
We got a gun situation, okay? And I couldn't imagine being an officer walking up to a door, wondering what the hell is on the other side of that door.
Right.
You know what I mean? So here's the thing. Going back to what you brought up, though, and I'm glad you did. People don't want to know the history.
Right.
Yeah.
People do. And that's what this big political thing is that they're talking about right now about schools and stuff, that they want to like take a part of history like out, and I'm
critical race theory.
Yeah, I'm like, what? I'm like, you're talking about the history of the police.
Yeah.
It's the history of the police,
Yeah.
right?
I always want to take out the bad things, you know, so like we can just forget about that as if it never existed or happened or whatever.
Because usually, most people just want to be in their little box.
Yeah.
They know that the world's a cesspool. They don't want to be bothered with any of the drama. I just want to go to my job, get my money, come home to my family, and live in this bubble.
Right.
But some people don't have a home to go to. Some people's family are their enemies.
Right.
Some people's poverty doesn't allow them to. They have records. They can't go get jobs.
Right.
So their realities are different. And because of that fact, when we look at these issues, you put LEOs, law enforcement officers, into this job. I've got 10 years of protective services in my background. So I'm not full on law enforcement, but I've worked in tandem in several different factions with APD and a couple of other departments, depending upon where I was stationed at doing security protect. So I understand the aspect of every day you see the worst of human behavior. But at the same time, the demand to be involved in the culture and the neighborhood, it's overlooked.
Right.
It's it's at will. It's, well, we want to, and we'll try to, and we'd like to,
Right.
and the way it gets brought to our community is very, it's insulting. I'm going to keep it completely blunt for a second. The manner in which we're spoken to, it's like, okay, well, what about the black community? Okay, what churches we got? Who we got? What churches? We're more than just churches.
Right.
That demographic left in the 60s.
Yeah.
And when you go to these departments and you talk to them about these things, this is what they stop at, and they go, well, we're doing this,
Right.
and that means that we checked our box.
Right.
These officers still come out here and empty entire clips
Yep.
because those boxes didn't get checked.
Well, he brought it up on his YouTube, and that is to me, it's critically important to have officers that are patrolling areas where they grew up.
Yeah.
I mean,
They're familiar with that area.
you know, I'm from West Akron. I know everything about West
Right.
Akron. So, and I don't know, is that a focus? How do they do that? How does that work?
It's not a focus.
No.
You just, you kind of get assigned to, a patrol car, and they do the little raffle or whatever, first come, first serve by badge number.
Okay.
It's not strategically.
But I'm just looking at it from a logistics standpoint. Because you brought that up. And especially Ross, something else you brought up before, and that's an officer relating to the folks that they're serving. Right?
Yeah.
And that's a part of it too. And that's why when he brought it up too, I'm like, okay, well, you guys need to talk about that.
Most definitely. We the thing is, there's a long-standing relationship between, black communities and law enforcement. And there's even a long-standing relationship between black communities and black police officers.
Yeah.
The climate, even in your most ruggedest of hoods, is if this officer shoots straight with me, we respect.
Right.
We know he died. We don't deal with him, quote unquote, that way, but we know that he's the same person each day.
Absolutely.
We know that each day that he steps on, we know he's not going for this, he's not going for that. Hey, y'all, put that up, yada yada. So and so coming through the block. He, as long as we ain't tripping, he ain't tripping with us.
Right.
And that's the nature of the community, and it's always been that way, for the most part. This isn't Compton, California, where gang protocol supersedes that. Yeah. This isn't Detroit. This isn't Watts. But at the same time, there's things that go on in this community and this department that are quite shocking. I mean, the fact that our demographic, we're basically 30% African American, 60% white. But then when you translate that over into the department, you've got like 12% black police officers, 76% white police officers. So these things come into play. And I guess my question is, can we really trust what you say, APD, when you say that you're going to make real efforts to change these disparities?
Well, let's talk about that. So I attended a press conference today, all right? And one of the things, Margot brought up that they have finally gotten approved for that Citizens Review Board, all right? Now, just to give you an idea, that started back in 2020, all right? So if you remember, I believe Oregon was one of the first to declare racism as a public health crisis.
That's what we brought that up on our show. Yeah.
And then they
And
created
the
committees and all that, right?
These church leaders that were supposed to.
Right, and that was probably June or July
This was
2020?
June of 2020.
Yeah. So at that point, that is when the protests stopped happening in Akron, because they started to see movement. All right.
Right.
But just think about this, right? Today was the announcement. So the committee was created in June of 2020, and now here we are in July of 20. It took 2 years. It took 2 years to come up with a Citizens Review Board.
I'll see that, and I'll raise you this.
Yeah.
In 2021, E.J. Brinson was elected as the diversity and inclusion director
Police department.
by Sheriff Kathy Father, and within a month of being hired, he was fired. And when questioned as to why he was fired, the sheriff's answer basically was she didn't agree with his tactics.
His tactics didn't
Now-
fit with her vision.
Yeah, his tactics didn't align with her vision. My issue with that is, and I'm just gonna lay out the timeline real quick so that we all can keep up. For a year, you worked in lockstep with E.J. Brinson
Right with him.
while you were looking to get elected to be sheriff, and you ran on the platform of being Ohio's first female sheriff. And we salute women's movement. That's a strong thing. But after you got your election, 30 days later, this guy that you've worked with for a whole year, that you've known and you trusted enough to give him the job, within 30 days, he's now incapable of
He's
doing the
not qualified
job.
all of a sudden.
And then after you get rid of him, you bring in Esther Thomas from the Summit County Juvenile Court, former magistrate, former human resources director for Dan Street. You don't. My question is, and I call them the questions, y'all. I'm calling them questions. I'm calling them questions. My question.
Do I need to do a disclaimer?
That's why I'm calling them questions.
The views expressed right now do not necessarily represent those of the Free Throw to Go Media Network.
There you go.
Hey, and we're gonna follow that with this and get ready for your edit.
All right.
Truth be told, radio will be keeping a buck because you know we don't give
We
a
don't
fuck.
give a fuck.
Right.
Period.
We're
But
good.
my question is, how do you get to choose who checks your balances?
Right.
If I'm doing something, or it may be questioned that I'm not doing something the right way, why should I have the liberty of being able to decide who gets to tell me that?
Right. Well, and that
It's
goes
bias.
right now to this whole BCI investigation, okay? Which also goes back to 2020, right? So, and I think it was Chief Ball that started with Mayor Horgan back then, and it was body worn cams, right? And outside review. And if I remember, DeWine was involved in that somehow because there was some other stuff going on too around then. So it was like a collaboration. But that's where this is the first time, isn't it?
Yeah.
This investigation is the first time the BCI is involved doing an investigation that's outside source.
Right.
So, and another thing to bring up, and to piggyback on that, is the Summit County Black elected officials, which they brought that up today in the press conference as well, that they had a really long, good meeting yesterday, and the two things they brought up were, we got to get dash cams back in the cars, and then he was talking about the system platforms don't always align, which is why they spent all the money on the body cams and took the dash cams out, because they didn't have the money at the time. So now they're appealing for that money, because honestly, I think this situation would be a lot more clear if we had both. If we had both. Especially seeing what happened with the traffic stop.
Right.
And then the other thing they brought up today was the name tags and the bounties and all that stuff. He said that that every officer still has a badge with a number. Is that right? So they get their employee number and then the cars. So the cars are all numbered. So in other words, if you have an incident with an officer, you can look at their badge, get their number, or you can just say it's car number 22. Right.
Now, I have.
Well, no, I get that. But this whole thing is, it wasn't unprecedented. That Cleveland did it first, and that they decided to do it, and it was because of the amount of threats that the guys were getting.
Well, I'm sorry if we're going to bring Cleveland into this.
I didn't mean to.
The only thing worse than, and I'm a Browns fan, and I'm sorry. The only thing worse than their sports team is their police department.
Right.
So that's not.
Well, I didn't mean to say right. I was just saying right that I understand what you're saying.
I mean,
I wasn't in agreement.
No, you're cool, man. I'm just saying that if we're taking point from CPD, Lord save the baby. I mean, because.
Well,
and I'm just being real here, and just as much as there are decent human beings that happen to be law enforcement. There are decent human beings that happen to wind up sitting in the back of those cruisers too. So,
Well, and,
You know.
and let's be honest. I mean, if we really want to get deep, we don't have time to get into this today, but I'm just going to throw it out there. We know the entire system is broken from start to finish.
Period, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
you get a kid, he gets popped for marijuana when he's 18 or something. Now he's got a record. So then something happens when he's like 22, 23. Next thing you know, it's compounded because he has a previous record. So now he's getting 3 years in jail. So now he misses 3 years of his life. He comes out. Now he's got a felony. Nobody will give him a job. So he falls back into a life of crime because he can't make a living, right?
But he still
And it
gotta
just
survive.
it completely recycles over and over again.
and that, if I can jump in there real quick, that is the part of the stigma that I think people, if I could say conservative, middle class Americans, that's my way of saying, have a disconnect and don't understand. I read through social media, and whenever an incident happens, the first thing that comes out is, well, if you would have complied and pulled yourself by your bootstraps, this wouldn't have happened. And, well, you shouldn't have been out doing this, and you shouldn't have been out. This patriarchal, what you should have been doing mindset comes from the other side of the culture when no one does the same in kind. You know, every minority or black American is automatically perceived to be criminalized. And that mindset translates into law enforcement. It translates into those neighborhoods. If I'm out walking the street at 11 o'clock, I'd be walking my dog. What are you doing out? I'm walking my dog. Well, you know this is a drug area. Well, you should do something about it and get them the hell out of here. Because I pay my rent. So that whole stigma of, you know, that profiling. And it trickles down into, on one side I can say maybe some police do it as a way of a survival tactic. But I feel like nothing beats good old fashioned honesty.
I made a post maybe a month or two into the pandemic in 2020, and it was supposed to be funny, and it was about hanging your masks from your rearview mirror. And I said, hey, who? And I took a picture, and it was all my masks, and we're all hanging, right? Immediately, people of color started commenting, "We'll get pulled over."
Yeah.
And I had a friend direct message me, and he said that he got pulled over 3 times for having an air freshener for an obstructed view,
Obstruction of view.
and 3 different precincts within like a month and a half.
Yeah.
And he left it up on purpose.
It'll be stuff.
So
like
it's
that.
like-
It's the simplest things.
I guess where I get confused, and this is a question for you.
Hey, we both. We want to talk to this guy.
Where
He's the man.
Where and how do police decide to put their effort versus let it go? How does that work?
I mean, you can't generalize because every officer is different.
Okay.
That's fair.
You know, a lot of these officers, you know their community. You know, then you get some, you know, when you get new hires and stuff like that, a lot of them are from outside of the city, and they don't get the proper training. And they might get with a bad officer that's not really taking the time to really introduce them to the people they're policing. You know what I mean? So if you catch that guy out at 11 walking his dog, you know, what's up, Sam? You know, be careful out here. You know.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Keep it moving.
you know what I mean? And even if you didn't know him, just be like, oh, you know, how you doing?
Right.
Be safe out here. What's your name? Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. I'm officer, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Card this. If you need me, you know where I'm at. I'm
How
in your
long were
community.
you on the force?
I did 3.5 years.
Do you mind if I ask what made you no longer be on the force? Like, when
I had a hip replacement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I had a hip replacement, and I was not sitting in the station
So you're
with
not sitting at a
supervisors.
desk.
Because one thing we haven't talked about yet, at least right now in this show, is that before he was a police officer, he was basically in a car accident every Sunday afternoon. All right.
Wow.
He was a running back. He was an NFL running back. All right.
For the Colts.
And the way that they talk about that, especially as a running back, every single time you get tackled, it's like being in a small car accident.
It is.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
You know,
And running backs have the shortest shelf life of any position on an NFL roster
So
because
you went from being a football player to a police officer.
Yep.
Wow, what a transition.
how about that?
I
You didn't know that.
Not at
See
all.
that?
I was
See that?
like,
I played pickup truck in high school. Bro. I was a D.
Wow.
So,
That's
oh, you know, it's that's real. You know, the neighborhood aspect is definitely needed. At the same time, I wouldn't be doing the community a service if I didn't express the fact that they tired.
Absolutely.
They're tired of waiting. They're tired of being castigated in a way. I was at a couple of the Jalen Walker protests, and one thing I noticed just even walking through, you know, the environment, for one, and you know, and you've seen it day and night. You had people who were visibly furious. They've had enough. If I'm sick of your shit was a person, it was them.
right.
And in that kind of climate, these law enforcement officers that have signed up and sworn to protect the Commonwealth and uphold the public trust and maintain their civic duties, in a situation like that, rather than try to de-escalate, they cycle one through the chamber. Or they'll throw the rifle on the back and they'll puff the chest out, or they'll get this menacing stare. And it's like, okay, you want this to happen.
Right.
Well,
And that's
the two words I hear the most are exhausted and angry,
that.
coupled. Okay, the community is exhausted and angry. Okay, when I think of what you just said in terms of there was different tactics that were used based on where we were at what time. Because there was the first one I was at.
Oh, this was during the daytime.
The first one I was at during the day, the building was empty and there wasn't a cruiser anywhere to be seen. It was right after, and they had just evacuated the entire block and nobody was there. So there was no officers, no. So I thought, you know what, this is pretty bright, you know, because there won't be confrontation, right? And then of course at nighttime the barricades went up and everything changed. And the only one that I didn't get, and see, back in 2020, I always think back, and I think they deployed tear gas at like 9:05. I think it was just one of those where they were like tired and just wanted to go home. So it's like, please disperse tear gas. And it was the first time Akron had deployed tear gas, I think, ever. It had been a long. It had been a long. I'm sorry, since like the 1970.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even because they tear gassed Akron U before.
All right, maybe. All right. I'm wrong. I'm wrong all the time.
So
all right.
that was before I had.
But I thought it'd been a really long time.
Yeah, it's been
All right.
it's been over 20 years, but it happened for
Okay.
sure.
All right. So that happened. I think that was the only time that one. And then this time we've already had 3. The one I didn't get was in front of the jail. Like, it's a jail.
Right.
Like it's a fortress. You know what I mean? Let people yell all they want in the parking lot. It just, that one I didn't get. So
Yeah.
and you can chuckle. I mean, you're not. But I'm like.
Yeah,
What,
'cause nobody's going in, nobody's coming out.
It's the.
But-
It's
Yeah,
the.
and if they are coming in, they ain't coming out.
That's the point. They don't want it. You know what I mean? And just that was confusing to me.
You know, it's, if I could try to pick the brain of what they were thinking, their mindset was more so, if they get these guys in here who are locked up and have a little hope at the moment, if we give them any kind of rebellious energy, we're going to be up all night.
Oh, in the jail.
All of the
Yeah.
deaths are going to be.
I see. Okay.
And okay, fine. This is an issue that is a lot deeper than your work shift that day. And I think that's the problem with these protests and with these discussions. People want to tell you when and where you can kick a chair over.
Right.
And I'm sorry,
Right.
you don't get to tell me that.
Well, and like I told you the other day offline before we were online, like they went to Ellett. And Ellett was like, wait, what are you doing here?
Right.
Like, wait, you're supposed to be downtown.
Yeah, don't come
You're not
up
supposed to
here.
come over to Ellett.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's the news chopper hovering over Ellett. I got 25 messages. There's a chopper over Ellett. There's a protest. That was when they were doing the rolling one, and they went in front of one of the folks' homes. That's a public official, right? But again, it goes to that thought process of there's a thought process in. I don't want to use the same word you do. I'll just say folks. I'll just say folks.
Okay.
Right?
That's cute.
You used a different definition.
I use the demographic.
Folks think a certain way that, okay, you can protest, but you can only do it here and you can only do it at this time. And if you break anything, shame on you. You're in trouble forever.
And the sad part about that is those same folks that feel that don't realize that they are a part of this community too.
Yeah.
This issue that's going on is just as much your problem as it is ours, because you have to come in contact with us in these environments. Or these environments, we may shop the same place. We may drive to the same job. We may be at the same work site. We are all a part of this community. Our children are going to wind up in some of the same school systems.
Yep.
What your children are taught versus what my children are taught is going to come out in that playground between the two of them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So these issues are very much your problem as they are ours. And the moment that we could understand that and we all be seen as equals and be seen as human beings, the sooner we all could change some of these problems.
Well, and that's just so you know, that's what happened with me on Saturday. Okay, I'm just doing my thing. I'm trying to share the scene, right? Now, and I'm not asking for sympathy here at all, but I was totally wiped out. I'd been on the go all day. I covered the Italian Fest in the morning in Cuyahoga Falls, right? Because it's all part of this community.
Right.
Then I go up and I'm doing Emoji Nation and the MJ thing.
Shout out to Emoji Nation, man.
Yeah, and I know the lead singer. Me and him used to play soccer together. Stefan. Okay. So yeah. So they're getting done, and now I'm getting word that the protesters are out there, and they're not going to bring the band out because the band they're nervous that the protest is going to happen. So I go running up there. Okay, and again, this is Hank just trying to be nice guy, trying to help, right? I do a little picture. I said, "There's a protest going on." And then I talked to the guy in charge, which is the guy with the megaphone. I said, listen, I said, they want to do this concert. Can they,
Right.
And he's like, yeah, we're going to. So in the middle of the concert, they did come in, right? And the guy, the MJ dude, handled it brilliantly. He said, thank you for being here. We respect you. We hear you. Just please don't interrupt my show. And they kept doing it, and then half the protesters were actually dancing. Yes,
Nice.
they had their hands
They
up
had
in the
a good
air,
time,
but
yeah.
they were getting down with MJ, right? So that ends. I go back outside. Now, mind you, I'm exhausted. So I'm like, okay, now I'm going to show you and I talked about that word, the dichotomy of Akron right now. We have a dichotomy right now. We can function, we can continue to live our lives, but at the same time, these folks can be allowed to share their voice. And as long as they do it peacefully, we can all coexist and continue to do the things. Because for me, I'm focused on, I know half those downtown owners, and I'm trying to help keep their business going, and I'm trying to help them not get their windows broken out.
Right.
That's a side role that I feel like as a burden. And so I go live, and then a couple guys come at me on the video, and by that point, I'm tired, and now I'm angry. I want to go home, and you guys are wrecking with the message I'm trying to share, because I told you I don't interview people live on the air, because you never know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
So then I cut my live and I flip around, and now I'm kind of going at them, and they're recording me the whole time. We have a 2-minute conversation before, a 2-minute conversation after, and in the midst of that, they kept asking me, "What do you think happened? What do you think happened?" This guy's going, "They planted the gun." There's like, there's 6 people coming at me from every direction, and I'm in fight or flight mode at this point. And I said, and I speculated. I'm like, I don't know. It's probably. I said, I'm not gonna say what I said because I could. I said there probably wasn't a shot, and what did I say? And I used the bad word, and I said,
"Oh no."
I said the window was probably closed. All right. but BCI will find all that out. And I said, I wouldn't share that live on my show because that would cause my city to burn to the ground. And of course, I got totally taken out of context. And now the next thing you know, I'm viral on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. And I'm going, wait. Show the 2 minutes before and the 2 minutes after.
Right, of course.
Now,
You got TMZ.
And then, well, then of all people, and then now I'm ready to swing. And Frank Nitti, of all people, is pulling me aside and calming me down. And I'm like, but that's the whole. That's the thing, though. It's trying to show that the community can exist, move forward from this, and be able to share their voice, be able to protest, but we can still have a freaking good, fun Michael Jackson concert,
no doubt.
right? So now my question to you, okay, how do we move forward from this? Like the biggest question that you showed me in advance was community relations, especially with the police. Okay,
Yeah.
I have been a big community relations advocate for both the police and the fire departments for the last 2 or 3 years. So in other words, every time they have an event, they invite me, and it's a kid event, and it's touch a truck or do this or whatever, and then like the shop with a cop. So I'm looking at it moving forward is what I do. And how the hell do we fix this in the future, coming up in the near future, where we could get back to allowing that to even happen?
Yeah.
So first of all, it's going to be after the BCI thing, right?
Right.
Okay. But at that point, we have to start reform and we have to start repair.
Right.
This is the biggest part of this issue, the grassroots solution-based aspect. The first thing that has to be done, each side has an immediate task. We'll put it like that. I'll start with the police department. The police department needs to have a higher standard of accountability. The community wants indictments on these officers. Okay? Dash cams. Suspension of this paid vacation that they're all sitting on. And the reason I say all that is because it sets the tone that you've already patted them on the back and said it's okay.
Right.
When firing your firearm can be seen as, oh, it's all right. Chief Myler said in that press conference that Akron Police Department goes above and beyond the state requirement for firearms training. Goes above and beyond. And what that says to me is that not only do you know what you're doing with your firearm, you knew what you were doing with it the night you shot Jalen Walker. And that's just, I'm not twisting it. It's not a spin. This is fact.
Well, then he went one step further, if you remember,
Right.
during that press conference, and he said that they followed their training. In other words,
That is the other part I'm.
well, he said it was. He said it was to neutralize the threat, if I remember correctly.
And that is the other part that I'm getting, that I'm
Right.
looking at. And I had that quoted actually verbatim as well, that they're trained to shoot until the threat is eliminated.
Right.
Well, my question is this. In this statement, this is July 4th, USA Today sharing of Beacon Journal's report. July 4th, July 3rd, Chief Milet said that all of the officers had said to him that Jalen had made a firing gesture. But in that same press conference, Chief Milet also said that the officers had not gave a statement. So when we're talking about accountability, we need a better account of your abilities. We need a better account of what you're doing. 1 minute is they haven't talked to us. The next minute is, well, they said, this information chain, this chain of command, this chain of custody in which information is moving, this transparency thing needs to get a lot better. When this shooting first took place and this homicide, this murder happened, the press conference was opened with, I want to thank the city council for doing an excellent job in getting these videos out to the public within 7 days. You were fucking supposed to.
Well,
this was what the city council asked for a year ago.
Well, yeah.
So what I'm saying is that when you say accountability, the tone, you guys got to come off your high horse.
Right. Well, and this will this will suck to hear, but in that situation, we're like one of the only districts that does that and does it in 7 days. And that was because of city council. So I wouldn't have, you're right though, I would have probably not opened with that, I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
But then,
The tone deafness.
no, and the next question I have, this is to you. Why doesn't every car have a dog? Like, is it?
That goes along with budget and all that too. I mean,
Well, maybe if they get rid of that diversity and inclusion.
I mean that
position that they paying that lady $75,000 a year, and she
that's
Because I ain't seen.
Like, I mean,
Esther Thomas, where you at?
and I
Maybe
but
that
that's the function. Had there been a canine unit, we wouldn't even be sitting here right now.
yeah, because they could have just sent the dog on him and
there was a K9 unit available that night.
Yeah,
wow.
sure.
Where?
I'm sure.
It was a K9 unit on duty.
But was it there?
It wasn't there. Obviously, it wasn't
Yeah.
there.
Well, so that's my point. Why wouldn't every car have a dog? I don't. I mean, is that all money?
Yeah, it's money. That's money.
Apparent.
Okay.
Okay, and so then with the whole threat, them shooting until the threat is eliminated. When do you decide that the threat is no longer
Word
a
is
threat?
neutralized.
Or
They could have signed a warrant. I mean, if you can't catch him and he's not a threat to anybody or anybody around him, you could have signed a warrant.
That's the other part I wanted to bring up. Okay, if we're shooting until the threat is eliminated, you're saying that you thought that he was going to pull a gun. You didn't see a gun. You didn't see a threat. You were anticipating a threat.
Right.
You were guessing there was a threat. You have on flak jackets, Kevlar. You've got a Glock 13 or 14 or whatever on your side. You've got a service revolver. You've got tasers. You've got an AR shotgun. You've got 145 other guys that you can call for backup. You should not be the one more afraid.
Well,
And they had
And if you
officers that
are
had tasers
afraid-
out. Like, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, they did.
Like,
If you are afraid, then Wendy's is hiring.
do you
yeah.
do you know do you guys know the chase history for Akron? Like what were the years? Did you have that?
The chase history.
Because now, if you remember, there was years that we didn't chase, and then all of a sudden we're chasing again.
Yeah.
I know that in 2011, I was working with Goodyear Security, and I know as of 2011, 2012, they were calling off chases.
Okay.
So,
Unless it's an RV going down Arlington Road. That was,
I got caught in a slow police chase like a couple of months ago, and they were chasing a pickup truck down Manchester Road, and they kept chasing it. And this dude probably was going like 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
they-
that's the loophole.
Well, what?
Oh, because he wasn't speeding, really, or
Because especially.
coming on oncoming
I could be
traffic and
wrong,
everything.
right? But I do believe the loophole is in the term, right? So most chases are considered high speed. If there's a high
Okay.
speed chase, then you have to call it off after a certain thing.
Gotcha.
Most of our streets though are like 25, 35 miles an hour. I mean, you can't maneuver between these streets and pick up a high speed.
Right.
So even in that video, you'll see each officer is like, we're doing 15, we're doing 25, we're doing 20.
they call out. Yeah.
They got on
Speed bump
they got on the
marker.
main street. I think the speed may have topped to 70 for like 5 seconds
On Route 8 or something?
Somebody did say it was
before it
55.
jumped back down. Yeah,
I just don't know what those. I don't know what those rules are.
Right. So I mean, in order to call off
Okay.
a chase, right, then it would have to proceed. It'd have to be some type of threat, something happening in the
What is
neighborhood.
that?
So let's take it
Coming
further.
towards
15
me,
miles
that
an
was a
hour
threat.
or 20
Shit.
miles an hour on a chase in the side street isn't really a perceived threat to them or to anybody around, unless there was like tons of children out.
So let's take it a step further. He gets on the highway. They claim they possibly seen a shot fired.
Right.
Why would you continue a chase
And
on
that's
the
what I
highway
was
with
gonna
multiple
say.
cars if somebody's shooting?
But
Why-
is that protocol for them to keep going? Because that's something I researched, and
if
they
I'm a
said that they
if
were
I'm a
supposed to call
supervisor,
that
I didn't
off.
heard supervisors cancel chases for less. You
Right.
know, like nah.
Well,
It's not
you know-
worth it. And then even going back to where he was in the county previously, and they called that chase off.
right.
and that's exactly what I was getting ready to bring up because I'm wise enough to know that badges talk to other badges, even if it may not get over the wire. Portage County had said, "Hey, we had this guy that took us past the city limits, and we really wanted to oblige the skip or whatever. However, this coffee shop talk went, and
I'm sure they ran this place.
and somebody ran it and said, "Oh, this is him." My thing about it, and this is something I think that we have to really understand. We're talking about the perception of a thing. I think many of the people in our community think that Akron Police Department is the greatest law enforcement agency that they can have. By the judgment of the police scorecard, which is an actual national website that rates the effectiveness of multiple national police departments, in a grading scale out of 100 points, Akron Police Department ranks 42 out of 100.
That's a
I
severe
think when
F.
I was in elementary school, that was an F.
That's below an F.
And-
F usually ranks from like a 52 or 50 to 60% or something like
What?
that.
Hold on.
That's
So,
lower than an F.
can you just make sure you cite that and stuff? Just
Police scorecard. They have a 42 out of 100 ranking. When it comes to per capita, their shootings, Akron ranks in the top 13% of unarmed people killed per arrest in the country. Now, this isn't the number of shootings. This is per capita.
Yeah.
38% of those people that they killed were unarmed. 50% of those people had no gun. So when you're shooting to eliminate a threat, and it looks like 87% of the damn time you don't know if there's a threat,
Right.
how can we really trust your accountability? And I think that has to be addressed. These are facts. Numbers don't lie. This isn't a slant. This isn't biased. This isn't me playing the minority card. This is your police department. So when you see people that are dealing with these environments and these issues, and you wonder why they're angry, these are some of the reasons why. Now, they may not have been knowing the statistics, but they've got up and lived and seen incidents with Akron police on a day-to-day basis. So,
all right, let's break that down further. This is interesting. So, 42 is the overall composite, right? On police funding, they rank 62%. Okay, so a little higher there.
Above average.
Yep. So police violence, they're at 42, and then for homicide solved and for racial disparities in drug arrests, they're at, I got my cheaters. I need my cheaters on here. 68, 69. So they're
So they suck.
Well,
All that
and
they're
that
average.
sound like to me.
so yeah. I just wanted to. If we're gonna talk stats, let's
Right.
do them all. So, but one of them is really bad here. Police violence against unarmed victims with deadly force per arrest is 13%.
and that's for all intents and purposes, that is the most important one, because my viewpoint on this is I've looked at social media and I've watched a lot of people that have had arguments about why we're protesting or why we're upset, and they're like, well, you guys just think he should have just got away scot-free. I'm saying it like this here. If it was a fact that this firearm was in his car, if it was a fact, and I'm saying was because it hasn't been stated that it is yet, if it was or is that these were facts, he still deserved his day in court.
Period.
And that is the issue that we have with
Yeah.
it, is that you have mass shooters that get to shoot 50
All the
people off
time.
rooftops.
I mean, it was.
And they get
it-
detained with
And yes, that's not Akron Police Department.
the timing of that could not have been worse.
Yeah.
Man,
Like,
that was like the worst.
It was a
thing.
week later,
And then
and I
yeah.
went and I watched it happen, and then I
I'm
watched the
like-
headline come
And they
across
used it on
that he
the
was
chase, too.
taken into custody without incident.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you know
they
he
took
shot
them on
people.
And I
he
just-
took them on a chase as well.
I mean, the guy mowed down a parade,
Yeah.
Parade
a
dressed
4th of
like
July
fire.
parade.
Yeah.
He wasn't a perceived threat to shoot until
No.
he was eliminated.
And he was not.
I wonder why.
eliminated. He was
And you know what?
arrested.
And I'm sorry,
Well-
we have to do it.
This is where I bury my head. Go ahead.
Okay.
And we have to say it because
Just go ahead.
this is Truth Be Told Radio.
It is what it is.
The reason why he made it to court, the reason why Dylan Roof made it to court, the reason why Peyton Gendron made it to court was because they have the complexion for the protection of the selection.
If you're following, there was a headline that just kind of got buried about a month and a half before Jalen's, and it was an arrest of a kid with guns after a chase, and he was taken into custody.
With no issue, and that's
And
the
I-
thing. Like,
And I can't remember his name,
Yeah, but it was
Brandon or Darren or something. Just look the case up. It's up
Right.
there. And
Okay.
it happened in Akron.
Okay.
wow.
And so yeah, I mean,
I wonder what
these are all things to talk.
And I'll put it this way.
These are all things to talk about.
I'll put it
And we
this-
have to have. Listen, I'm looking at that camera right there.
Mm-hmm.
These are uncomfortable conversations that we have to have.
Yeah.
true.
That's it.
Period.
Sorry.
I'm gonna put it this way, so maybe that it's understood on more plain terms. Those shooters and those suspects were still seen as human beings by their detainers.
Yeah.
The problem is that when you have a police force that is basically virtually 80% white, and virtually 45% of their arrests are black, there's a cultural divide that I'm gonna have to say a gut check needs to be decided on these officers. Do you see us as human beings?
All right.
And that's just gotta say it.
So to take that to the next step, then, how do we get more African American men to be, or women?
Yeah.
Because I met some badass women. How do we get more to be on the force?
There's a different solution. There's a different solution, and I'm glad you asked
Because
that question.
you're throwing out the 80%, right? So
I'm gonna tell you what our community feels is the real solution.
okay,
We need to police our own environment.
There we go.
Yeah. That part.
Whether it's a small security company, whether it's a ragtag group of community activists that have status and have influence in their own neighborhoods and can be pillars in their own communities, we need to protect ourselves and from those that aren't like ourselves. And that's just the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
And that causes a climate to where we're no longer asking you to stop shooting us because you realize we done whooped their ass and you don't have to come shooting because we done ran him out the neighborhood because we have that under control. So that was the other half of your question earlier about accountability.
well, if you want to pop the lid off that, let's pop the lid off, okay? there was a time, and again, people always ask me, we don't have insider information that I'm getting from police or from BCI, so squash that. That is just stupid that they suggested that. But we do get tips from everybody all the time. You know, I get there's a shooting on Wilbeth right now. There's a shooting on Arlington right now. So when I go to report on a shooting, there's two criteria. One, is it a danger to the public? Or two, have they blocked off the area to big enough where it's creating a traffic problem? Those are my two criteria because I used to go to all of them. And then people were like, don't do that because what you're doing is you're highlighting that neighborhood and making that neighborhood look bad when everybody in the neighborhood knows who's doing it, right? And when the little girl got killed, I saw the one lady went live.
Right.
And she pleaded to the black community directly to stop shooting each other.
Right.
Right.
And so, you know, people talk about the black on black gun violence. I just reported on a freaking pizza guy. The guy's delivering a pizza.
Right.
I mean, what are we doing? Right? So how do you even begin to police that? And then go back to Atavia. Go back to Atavia you would see a movie.
Yeah.
Right? So these are all things that are happening that all need to be addressed, and it's such a
Right.
big issue. And the problem is right now we're facing on the police aspect of it, which we should, but
It's deeper than that.
it's so
deeper than
much deeper.
Because people don't have trust issues.
But how do
too.
you police that if folks are just shooting each other and then
Yeah.
nobody's gonna tattle on it?
Here's
it's
here's
just-
part
You
of
don't
that.
know who to trust.
Here's part of that. Like you said, what we're looking at in some situations, we're mistaking some of the symptoms as diagnoses. I'm not saying us per se. I'm saying society as a whole. When you look at, let's take color out of it. Let's take ethnicity out of it. Anytime you have a criminal environment in a society, it's because the economic environment is deplorable.
Yeah.
So So what?
Now we just went. Now we're
Black
talking
crime,
redlining.
Asian crimes.
now we're talking
Any
redlining.
community can have
I
the
mean,
same on ethnicity
Yeah,
crime.
I don't care what color you are.
Yeah.
If there's no money, if the money's not flowing, blood is,
I-
and that's just how things are.
Whenever I talk about these things, I always say they're an onion. There's,
yeah.
and there's
And
all
they
layers.
stink, too.
There's so many
And they stink.
I
layers.
mean, it go back to the beginning of America.
Oh.
I mean, it's deeply rooted. I mean,
Yeah,
this is,
it's-
and you know, we
it's
try to
created
find
by-
ways to infiltrate, but it's always going to be somebody standing there that's stopping you from that elevation to make real change. And you know,
Yeah.
people get discouraged. You know what I mean? People get tired. You know what I mean? And then it becomes trauma. You know, and
Right.
it's trauma going on in that police department. You
Oh
know?
yeah,
And trauma
Best believe
being
it's
passed down.
black officers that's feeling
they're
the
gut
type
checking
way.
themselves right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and talk on that for a second. So, what do you think? What do you think the officers are all going through right now?
I was divided. I know it's divided. You know, and you know, not. It's the reality situation is not every officer sees African Americans as equal. It's. I mean, I saw it in my interview process. You know what I'm saying? You got an NFL running back up in here trying to serve his city, and you got somebody scowling like, "Who's this guy?"
Right.
I'm that guy that won Mr. Ohio back in 2005. You feel me?
Okay.
man.
Like, stop playing with me. I want to service my community and make them understand that, you know, I'm here to help guide my own. You know what I'm saying? I'm not looking at you like, oh, we about to just write this piece of paper and get you in the system. I'm trying to educate you on how to stay out of that system, keep that money in your pocket, be there to raise your kids.
No doubt.
Right.
You know, that's my overall goal. I don't care about how many arrests I got under my belt, how many people I detain. I want to, if I have to detain you, I want to educate you and tell you how to stay out of the situations. They want people to be arresters or, you know, cowboy go get
Are there
them.
quotas in regards to that
Oh,
for
yeah.
the officers needing
There's
to have so
bonuses,
many
too.
arrests? Like,
Personally, I haven't seen that, you know, so I can't.
I would say traffic tickets.
It's more of an ego thing. You know, some people go in there with an ego.
right,
You know, I'm that guy.
right.
You know,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say when you have spoke about the division, would you say division as far as ethnicity, like you know, blacks versus white, or like maybe seasoned officers versus you know like tenured officers or whatever?
Nobody's talking to these black officers on how they feel.
Okay.
And it's coming to a point to where they can't take it no more. They
and
need to unionize and they need to protect each other.
Wow.
which goes back to when I started this and I gave an overview of the origin of the police force. Just understanding the psychology of the landscape. Okay. For all intents and purposes, for lack of articulation, the police department is the modern day overseer. Okay. They keep the order of the community, or what is perceived as order. The problem for minority officers is that the majority of them don't join the force to carry out their bloodlust of murder or legal homicide. They believe they're trying to change the socioeconomic disparity between the black community and society and law enforcement. So maybe if I'm here, I can be one of those guys that tries to change the system, and then they get into the system and they realize the system's working just fine. And the psychological aspect of realizing that now you're in so deep that you can't, and trying to cope with that brings them to be some of the very same people that they thought they were trying to get rid of. And that's the problem. And that's why a lot of those officers, they have a call of their conscience. You have a lot of officers that aren't of that demographic that were honorable discharges out of the Army, awarded and commended for their tours in Afghanistan. They killed 1,700 insurgents during their 3 tours, and you know, and I'm just calling it like it is. They were taught that we're going to take the worst of your psychology and call you an American hero. And then when you come out of that department, here's a way to pacify yourself. You can be, we'll pay you as a police officer. Knock these kids around for a while. Well, in their mind, this savagery that they're committing is the greatest act of their own existence. They believe that they're serving their country, and patriotism in some people is greater than religion. And that's some of the problem when you put those two elements under the same badge and say, serve the community.
What is interesting, you bring that up. My dad was a Marine. He's old. And when he turned 80, I got him a shadow box of all this stuff. It was so cool. It was so cool. But I asked him one day, I said, so what do they teach you to do when you go in to become a Marine? He said, to kill people.
They don't tell you how to
Flat
stop.
out. Flat out.
They don't teach you how to stop killing.
He said they teach you to be the baddest man on the planet and be a killing machine. I mean, that's the function, right?
Right.
Because when you're in battle, there's a winner and a loser, right? So it's hard. It's interesting you bring that up. The amount of officers that have previous military experience.
They're
And most-
incentivized to do the job.
And most of them haven't killed people, right? Most, I'd say most, because
We'll say most. And the reason why I'll say most is because when they get into physical confrontations with people, they get so scared that they go for their gun. So yeah, we'll say most.
Nobody's laughing right now. Well, I'm not laughing.
Tight
Look at
face.
me, I'm not laughing. Right? So yeah, I'm just making sure the camera's getting me. No, and I don't know, man. Where do we go? Where do we go? What's all right? All right. We gotta wrap this thing up because we're getting long.
Late.
But let me ask you a direct point blank question. All right, so when these protesters walk around, they hand me these pamphlets, and it's got their list of all these demands, right? What do you want to see change? Give me your list. Let's do this. Will be good for all of us. Give me three things. Give me three things. Okay.
I'll give it last.
All right. Give me the top three things that you want to see change after the BCI investigation has concluded.
For me, I would like to see the officers involved to be held accountable for the part that they played in taking Jalen's life, because it was definitely unnecessary to be that excessive in shooting him like that. Like, I feel like they need to be prosecuted. Like, there is no investigation I feel like they need to be prosecuted, period. Like, period, point blank. I don't care what they feel the investigation, you know what I'm saying, as far as like they were justified and it was, all that is bullshit. Watching that video, watching him from all of them angles being shot that many times, and then they're still shooting, and this man is laying dead on the ground and you're still shooting him, and then someone is yelling ceasefire and you're still shooting. There's nothing justifiable in that. Like, there is no reason why he should have been shot up like that. So they all need to be indicted in regards to that.
All right, so that's one.
That, yeah. Two for me would be, I really don't know, because it's like, after that, they get indicted, then what? You know, if there's other officers that are like that, how do we know? Yeah, like, how do we get the police to
Supervisors need to be held accountable for that night too.
So, and that too, yeah, there you go. Like, people, the people
Whose watch was this on?
whose watch was it on? Who felt the need or that was okay to do that? Like, I don't know. I don't have three things. I have that they asked need to be indicted. Period. Point blank. For me.
Oh, number one is number one. She said it clearly.
Okay.
Secondly, yeah, supervisors need to be held accountable. Thirdly, when something happens like this in the black community, I'm tired of hearing a chief that's not speaking to the whole department's psyche. You know, stop speaking for the minority officers when you're not asking them how they feel.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of it, and then stop using us to get out there and calm down to the protesters if you're not concerned
That was my problem.
with how I feel. You know, you got Lieutenant Miller, which is a great community relations officer, not speaking his mind, you know, just directing you know, the interviews and stuff like that. You can ask your question. That man is wise. So let him speak, because he could really, you know, take the stress down if you hear him out. You know what I'm saying? We're not puppets. We're human beings. You know.
Right.
And then you put us in those places for checkpoints. You're gonna see real change. You know. Don't. It just need to be more people of diverse background in position to converse with. You know, we having this issue in this community. Oh, he's from District 10. You know, he has family out there. Let's talk to this minority officer. We got these cops in the area. They're seeing this go on. Oh well, he's from there. Let's talk about these certain families we having issues with and how we can reach them. Really game plan it.
Right.
Stop going out here playing cowboy.
Yeah. That's definitely.
All right, so I'm going to say accountability, but I don't know what that means. So I'm just going to let it happen. That's not for me to decide, and that's what the courts are going to do. So I'm going to come up with 3 others. I love what Cleveland did when the mayor said he wants officers walking the street. So first and foremost for me, I want to get these officers in the community. All right.
Yeah.
So in other words, you're patrolling, get out that car and walk a couple blocks around the neighborhood.
That was one of mine.
One thing Brunson did, we had a flag football game.
Yeah.
And to hear that he got removed from that position, I mean,
It's
like,
ours.
you know, like, why?
Well,
I went to school with you.
Yeah,
saying?
great dude, you know what I mean?
You know,
you guys are stealing my thunder. Come on, this is my 3. Two was
We'll come back. No.
two was from a community relations standpoint. So when I see these events, the police are always in uniform.
right.
Get them out of uniform.
Yeah.
I want to see them playing in a softball game. You know, I want to see them coming to a cookout. You know, let's have a thing that is what's it called? You know, like a barbecue,
Yeah,
like they
real
do it. They
community
do it at a
events.
Goodyear
We
Heights.
call them cookouts.
Yeah. No, I'm saying when it, you know, when it comes to
Block
Party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
where damn it, where they show up and instead of wearing their full police outfit,
Right.
they're wearing a polo with a little crest. It says, "Yes, I'm an officer, but I'm not in my full gear. I'm not here
Right. To
to
intimidate or
police.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm here to hang out with you guys."
Right.
That's 2 as far as community relations, because I'm looking down the road, right? And then 3, when it comes to reimagining public safety and all these review boards, the most important thing for me is de-escalation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you go about doing that in a environment like, for example, look at me. I escalated on Saturday. I was in fight or flight a little bit, right? But
Okay.
Yeah,
but
well, you had 6 people at you too.
yeah.
You know,
The point is, how do you go about de-escalating that? And the answer is not running full speed at a guy, right?
Right.
So it's like, okay, I don't know what policies and procedures to de-escalate, and maybe more personnel. And they've talked about the whole thing with having a non-officer person. What are they called?
A liaison.
A liaison. Okay, and those are my 3.
Okay. No.
That's it. I didn't want to comment.
Oh no.
I was waiting for your 3.
Definitely a non-city council, non-Akron Police Department appointed diversity director. This has to be someone from the community that the community has picked. Never mind the pomp and circumstance of going through your systems of checking off. We need someone from our community that is about our community.
Would they be elected?
It
How
needs
does
to
that?
be-
How would that work?
You know, I've seen them go into legislation houses and write up some wonderful things. Okay, I'm sure there is some string that can be pulled and maneuvered to where you can bring a person of the people and say, we hear their voice.
Yeah.
Their voice is the voice of the community.
Okay.
That's one. I also say that whether it's on bikes or whatever, some form of foot patrol other than riding around in these blacked out militarized cruisers, get out and get to know your community. 3, I mean, we want them indictments, man. I mean, I know that's somewhat down the road. I mean, that's somewhat more immediate than the down the road, but we need to see.
Yeah.
And it's like this: an indictment is not a conviction. If these officers can pass the litmus test of the court of law, then the court of law will due process. We'll have to respect and accept that. But we want the process started.
Yeah.
I see.
And taking off a paid leave and all of that, I feel like that, being rewarded for bad behavior is like a thing that always is an occurrence. Like, why are they getting paid? Why are we paying them?
It's one of the only forces that can do that.
Well,
Hold on, I got three for you too,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So personally, of course, we need dash cams. Like dash cams is a thing. Body cams are great and everything, and but the dash cams would have helped bring clarity to the situation from the jump. We wouldn't be using our OSHA cams or whatever, our fucking, excuse my language, but the cams over top of the expressway
To find a
to
gunshot.
decide if that was a gunshot or not. We should have a dash cam.
That wasn't even clear.
Yeah, that's, you know what I'm saying? And if not, I mean, like, look, they come to your house and they'll ask you for your ring cams and everything else. I'm sure somebody around there had doorbell cams and something, you know what I'm saying? But we should definitely have dash cams. That's one. One would be dash cams. Two for me would be, we would definitely need new leadership. I noticed that a lot of people came out to these protests with the whole vote for me thing, right? It's like, well, yeah, vote me in office and I'll be the one that's going to affect change. And we all know how that works.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We all get behind you in this moment of crisis.
Yeah.
We use our voice to, and our energy, our
You
anger.
prostitute our passion.
Yeah, you
prostitute our passion.
Yeah, and to vote you in, then you sit around and you give us these what about and what we can do.
It'd be the same thing.
Another, for me personally though, is like the way that we do these city halls and these meetings. Everybody should get notice to these things. I mean, like, there should be a blast where people can get emails in advance and things of that sort.
Or in the mail, because there are older people
mailers
that
and
don't
stuff
do
like that. I mean,
email.
y'all send me all of this trash every day in the mail. You tell me you can't drop a mailer that say, hey, we're going to have city council. These are the dates. This is our topics. These are the things. You know what I'm saying? Like, so virtually, when we had the virtual city council meeting, impromptu, right? I managed to get on because I had to fill out the form and do all of this extra thing. But I know countless people who wanted to pop in and use their Zoom and all of that stuff, but then they had to go in and change settings and do all of this extra stuff in order to even get in. And by the time they got up there, only like 5 or 6 people got called. You know what I'm saying? So for us, just having a better way of relaying all of this information to us, like half of us don't know that there's a daily briefing almost every day from the mayor now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you never know like that. Like, we didn't know until the police shot and killed Jaylen Walker that they had never turned in one critical incident report. Not one time ever. And you would think that after, you shoot someone down 60 times or 43, however they want to call it, you know what I'm saying, that you would then turn around and at least make that the first critical incident report that you would make. Still none. So there's a lot of things like that, shorthanded, that we need to get together and get fixed first. I got one question for you. I know y'all going to wrapping this up real fast. I asked you off before, but like, how do you find a way to separate the comments in your page, the things that your opinion, how you feel, and from being a news source, right? You have to have an opinion that you can't really voice on your page. You have to give people the First Amendment to say the things that they want to, but also kind of, dial it back when they get a little too excessive. So how do you find balance in that?
We drink a lot.
That's what I'm talking about.
Alcoholism at its finest.
Like the last 2 years have killed me,
No doubt.
physically.
Right.
So to be blunt, that's an actual disagreement among our own leadership team, right? Our half our leadership team is freedom of speech. Let them go, whatever. I don't do that because the last thing I want is for people to be able to use our platform as a weapon against someone else.
Yeah.
Understood.
It's not okay, right? So you have freedom of speech, but not freedom to be an asshole. I mean, that's really,
No doubt.
and it's hard to draw that line. But really, we do the best. Like right now, with the comments coming in, we get thousands right now. So we have people self-report. So they'll do the thing where they'll take their little snapshot and say, "This person made fun of me," and they'll send us a message, and then we'll go look. And we're so big now that we get a lot of that.
Yeah.
A lot of spam stuff.
Yeah,
Like
the
Check
box.
us out.
yeah, it's like
movie now.
yeah, hi, I got rich. Now you can too. Just click on this link right here.
Right.
And it'll go to like 25 people in like 2 minutes, and you're like, ugh. So really, you just gotta block, ban, all that stuff. And then we also get rid of mental health people, and they're the people that come directly at us.
Right.
So if you attack me, any one of our folks, or our network directly, you don't deserve my content.
Yeah.
You don't deserve our content. You are the way we treat it is you're a guest in our restaurant. If you start turning over all the tables and getting in a fight with the chef,
You gotta go.
you gone.
Right.
You gone.
You gotta get kicked
So and
out.
that's hard because it's a fine line you walk in, and
Right.
and because we're like this weird like thing because we're not really journalists. We're more like citizen journalists, I guess. But at the same time, we focus on sports, traffic, weather, entertainment, DJing, music,
Right.
culture, art. You know, we're not just a news source. And people get pissed. They're like, "Wait a second, what are you doing putting this on? I thought you were a news source." I'm like, "We also talk about movies."
Right. You know.
So
And that's that's a very much needed thing. The ability to control media and create your own platform, and you have such a diverse network of what you provide. It gives that outlet to where you're not caught up by the media spin or by investors holding
people get so mad.
extorting you and things like that.
Because we do have sponsors. You know, we have to make money doing this, or
Right.
we can't do it. We have patrons and we have subscribers, right? And somebody lectured me down and stripped me down last week. Oh, if you're getting paid advertisers, you're automatically beholden to them. I'm like, no, none of them have ever said a word to me about anything.
Right.
Because when we post, it's straight down the middle neutral, and it drives people crazy because we don't pick a side. And then all of a sudden, and people will argue in the comments as to which side the article is, and it makes me laugh.
Not realizing that, I'll put it like this. The fact that you put yourself in a position to where you will give an even dose of however many sides there are,
Yeah.
that's an act of servitude. You know what I mean? In that aspect, I know there's a lot of people that don't understand what they're trying to pick your brain and figure out what you're doing. And I know a lot of them don't, so when it comes to things like this, media is definitely the tool that we have to use. Unfortunately, when it comes to situations like this, we still have to understand that there is a part of the reality that isn't for the spin. When this brother goes home, he's going home to the reality of it.
Yep.
He's helping to cope and keep his family strong. When the Walker family leaves out of their house, yeah, they've been on countless news clips and videos, and they become another hashtag in the national wall of memorial. But at the same time, it's still a real thing for them.
Yeah.
And what we strive to do on our platform is to give our community the outlet to vent,
Yep.
to speak that non-politically correct truth, because we know the PTSD of trying to fit in. Like you just said, you cope with it by drinking. I know it's a joke, but there's some truth in it.
Is it? Sorry, Mom. Sorry.
We know that there are people, whose day-to-day lives, there's things that they're dealing with on a very diverse level. It's not, the community's not just some monolith. There are people that are in various sciences and fields and engineering and science and tech and political aspects that these things are stressing them out. So we're glad that these 3 panels, live at 225, 330 to go, the Ville, were able to bring these issues into light, not only for the community, but for the Walker family as well. I want to salute all of y'all for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
You know,
I want to before you. I have two questions for you. With that being said, you know, with like you got to go back home and y'all still dealing with it. How are y'all dealing? Like, how are y'all coping?
How are you feeling? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Like, how do you feel?
I mean, you know, it's just hurt, you know. It's a void, and all we want is justice, you know, and we want it in a peaceful manner. We want Akron to get better from this. I mean, all we can do is just pray and, you know, ask for healing and do the work, you know. That's it.
Yeah. One more question. When you were a police officer and dealing with all of the things that you had to deal with, how did you cope with that when you went home?
It's tough. You have to find time to digest all that. A lot of officers just keep running, and then you run yourself to an early grave through high blood pressure or whatnot. Mm-hmm. You need to go to therapists. You need to, you know,
to let that go.
Let that out, because if you don't, you're not doing your job to the best of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no doubt. And we see it too with what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's every day. It's like there's days that just cry. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you guys were the same way.
I don't cry.
All right. Well, I
get emotional.
he pours a little extra heavy on the drink.
No, I don't drink or smoke or anything like that, so I get extremely emotional. Like for me, this, even though I didn't know Jalen personally, but I know people, you know, that's related to him and stuff like that. And I have a black son, so for me,
You see him every day.
it was just knowing when I look at my son, like if that. Like any mother that has gone through this and lost their son, their child, it breaks my heart because I have no understanding. There is no way I could not be here right now talking to y'all if this was my child. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I would be dead too because I respect her decision and all of that, but me personally, and that happened to my child, I wouldn't have any understanding. I'm going down there and I'm shooting up that whole fucking police station, and y'all gonna have to kill me because that to lose a child, I've never felt that, but the love that I have for my children, you know what I'm saying? To lose that and to never get that back, like that's something they'll never be able to replace that. You know what I'm saying? Nothing, no amount of money, no justice, no whatever will never replace that void. And that just, so for me, yeah, I get emotional as hell. It'd be hard for me with these types of situations. That's why I wanted to know, you know, like, how are y'all doing? How are y'all coping with this? Because I wouldn't be shit. I wouldn't be no good.
It takes a lot to have that restraint and not show that anger. You know what I mean? And that's how you know she's a strong woman.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
Right now in the comments, hashtag J4J is going strong.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm going to take this time out as well. You know, salute to those in the community that are actively trying to make their voices, their time, their energy, their efforts heard in keeping light on this situation.
Yeah.
You know, some people may agree, may not agree on how some of the methods are,
Right.
but whatever it is, it's working in some positive aspect.
I hope that event can occur with the gloves up.
Oh yeah,
Gino
yeah. Shout out to Gino Tony, man.
Yeah.
My guy Gino.
That'll be dope. Yeah.
For years has
you
been
putting
actively in the community and working with our youth to try and change the minds of our youth to be different citizens out here through boxing.
I covered him.
Yeah.
Is that the Akron Akron boxing gym?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a story on them.
Yeah, so-
Shining Stars.
They got two kids that are nationally ranked.
He
Gino knows what he's
definitely,
doing.
Yeah.
He putting these things on the map, and he does
It's like walking into a Rocky movie. Have you been there? I'm
I've
like,
been in there. I've watched.
they wanted me to like work with this big ball bag, and I'm like, I think it'll knock me over, man.
Yeah, they not playing no games, but he do events where it's, you know, gloves up, guns down, where it's, and he's putting an event together where civilians will have the opportunity. Hopefully, this can occur where they'll have the opportunity to
Let me know. I'll cover it.
police officers, you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
I'll cover that.
I know I would love to be there.
I want to see that.
Like, please, like, most high, let them get their ass kicked.
And okay, yeah, you know, all right, you know, we have there's a bit of a bias here. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, it's a healthy one. It's a start. If it is, hey, you know what? Officer so and so, man, you pissed me off last week when you pulled me on this. You know that was some bullshit. Oh well, okay, well let's go hit the gym. And okay, they hit the gym, and okay, they throw 3 rounds, and then maybe afterwards they might drink a beer.
Yeah.
That's
community building.
That's a change.
Exactly.
That's a change.
Those type of events, like the community relations stuff like that, like the boxing, the flag football, like how you suggested, stuff like that, that is relatable to the community. Yeah, the cookouts.
Well, I didn't suggest a flag football. EJ Brunson did that
Yeah, okay.
with the Canton Football Hall of Fame involved.
They didn't let you play, did they?
Oh yeah, I played.
Oh, that's not fair. that's not fair.
Defense or something.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
his
yo.
team won for sure.
All right, land the plane,
like,
man.
Like I said, I'd like to appreciate, thank everybody that came out tonight, man. This
Yeah,
was,
dope.
I believe this is.
I appreciate you doing this.
Hey, anytime, man. I think that this was a productive outlet. From what it looks like, it's being received by those that are watching. Hopefully, this is a start of change in the narrative. Yeah. Through media at least, that we can create these outlets to talk about these things. Shout out to 330 to go, brother DeLon Carter.
Yeah, for sure.
Live at 225. My man, my man DC is holding down the controls for me today, man. If y'all watch my show on Mondays, y'all know it's normally me sitting over here. Half the time I'm doing this, I'm running that, and I'm still talking,
Team
So
technical difficulties.
Can I get some air horn? Is there
You know,
air? There it is. There we go.
you know what I mean? So that's our time. Catch us every Monday at 8 ish on my Facebook page, as well as we're going to start transferring over to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Village's YouTube channel. We're going to be multi-streaming from Facebook as well as on there to branch out the program. Again, I'd like to thank my panel, and hopefully we can start finding some kind of accountability between our community and Akron Police Department. There are some tough roads ahead, and there are some big asks that we're asking, but we need some of them. So City of Akron,
Some kind of middle ground.
we need some.
Yeah.
So that's our time.
Peace.
Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Everybody out there,
Everybody.
say goodnight, Shirley.
Good night, Shirley.
Good night, Shirley.
Yeah, that's his outro.
Oh, good night, Shirley. Night to Shirley. Who is Shirley?